Hello, my fellow artists, and welcome to part two of perspective in oil painting. A few people have asked me, what do I use for a medium? I use walnut oil. It's safe. I wear gloves because of toxicity, even though I've been painting since I was 8 years old. Um, so today we're going to work on the painting that I started in uh, perspective number one. I'm on my boat studio. It's rocking like heck out here today, so we're moving around a bit. So if you hear noises, seagulls, or people hooting and hollering, I'm currently in a fishing community dock. Anyway, so where we left off, I this horizon line was sort of straight, and what I did is I made it a little bit curved because I wanted to create a little bit more depth. The cool thing about paths is it allows the viewer to think about what's going on into the path. Um, and we know, as we mentioned in the last class, light comes in from this side. So I indicated a little bit of the shadows, and to reiterate what I taught in the last class, as things get further away, they get more out of focus, they get closer together, and they get smaller. Thus, the trees are all blurred out here. Also, as things get further away, they lose some of their chromatic value. In other words, they're not as bright. Now, what we're going to do today is introduce some new techniques and some new fun stuff. One of the things I have is this is an acid brush, used in hardware stores, and it is used to apply acid and whatnot to things. This is just a beat up old 1-inch brush, and we're going to use these for some texture. And what else I'm using today is I'm using a bright number 1 for finer details, a number 6, and a number 4 bright. So, with that said, this is an autumn seed, and if we're going to go with these kind of a orange brownish sky. So I've mixed my palette up here, very similar to the last palette. But what I've done is I want to play with the sky a little bit. So I've made, this is sap green, this is just sap green with white, this is sap green with cadmium yellow deep, lightened up. This is my dark, which I made by mixing burnt umber and ultramarine blue. And over here, these are the colors that I'm going to use in the sky, and I mixed it with a little bit of cad yellow, a little bit of yellow ochre, and a little bit of Indian red. I introduced a little Indian red, which I don't usually use because I want to play with it. And it's always fun to play with different colors and whatnot. So when we're doing a sky, in order to give it atmospheric perspective, we want the sky to be dark at the top and light at the bottom. This is a little bit lighter, a little bit darker at the bottom than I would like to see it. So what's called glazing is when you take a thin paint and put it over a already dried paint. And this is all dried from last week. So what I'm going to do is make a very thin titanium white. Now, one of the things that I want to mention is whenever you add titanium white to anything, it increases it and makes it more opaque. For instance, there's colors like alizarin crimson and ultramarine blue that are transparent colors. In other words, what that means is if I painted a line of it over the front of this, you would see through it. But as soon as you add titanium white, it makes it opaque, so it will cover more. If you want to use a white that will be more transparent, you would use a zinc white or a flake white. We'll talk about that in future classes. So what I've done is I've taken some of my um, some of my walnut oil, and I'm just going to mix it a little with a little white, and there we go. We're going to, and the thing is, have fun with this. Don't worry. See, I'm being a little sloppy. You can always be sloppy, as long as you got some sort of idea and form in your mind. But here we go. We're lighting up the lower sky, and this is called glazing. And glazing is fun. You could lay down some yellow, let it dry, and then put a light coating of blue over it, and it'll turn it green. As you know, ultramarine blue, as I just mentioned, is a very transparent color. So here we go. We've laid down some lighter color at the horizon line, and of course we blend it up. You don't want any hard lines. Now I'm going to take the same brush and I'm going to put the indication of some clouds in there. And the reason I'm doing this is to teach a little bit of perspective. This isn't by far one of my fine art pieces, but these are some techniques that work really well. So what I'm going to do is take some of this mix that I made with Indian red, Indian red, cadmium yellow, and yellow ochre, and I'm going to put the indication of some little clouds in there. Now notice, way back, the clouds are really small, and they're going to be faded away. As we come forward, the clouds get a little bit bigger. And I'm going to go off at an angle because I want to still create an atmospheric perspective and a linear perspective. So my cloud here, notice the cloud here is much bigger than the cloud in the back. And this one here is just a little bit smaller. And this one here is a little bit smaller. And as they go further away, you can't see them as much. So there we go. We can take this beat up old 1-inch brush and we can just lightly touch it and blend that glazing white into it. So now we have a series of clouds out to the back, but that's the bottom of the cloud. I'm going to put one more big cloud right up here because we do need a bigger cloud in the foreground, and that's the bottom of the cloud. All right, as simple as that. Now we're going to make the top of the cloud. Now what I did is I mixed up the paint, the same color, but I mixed it with a little white. So now I have the light on the top of the cloud. And think of shape, think of form, clouds, they always change, so they're always fun to do. I mean, you can never really do a wrong cloud. And here we go. We'll put the colors here, and now we'll notice I'm fading out some of the clouds in the back, but I'm leaving the indication of clouds. Now we have, let's see, let's put one right here too, a nice big one. All right, and the bottom of the cloud, we want it a little bit darker. And notice that it gets darker as it comes forward as well. All right, so now we have the illusion of distance and depth because we've created the small clouds closer together. They get larger as they come forward, and now they're at the front of the painting. Now I'm just going to lightly blend some of this. Just touch it here and there, and look at what you're doing. Just don't go wild with the brush. I've got a movement in this angle, so I actually kind of want to create that angle down into the sky. And it's an autumn day. So there we go. In less than a couple of minutes, we've created the illusion of depth in just the sky alone. Now, the same thing goes for the land here. Now this field on the right, I can make it darker in the front, or I can make it lighter in the back. I think I'm going to do both, and all I'm going to do is exactly the same thing, teaching a little bit of glazing here. I'm going to take and I'm gonna glaze a little white. Could do yellow too, but I'm gonna glaze a little white. Now, one of the things I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to bring a little of that sky color into the grass, into the field. Just a few strokes and we've got amazing effects there. Now, not going to go too crazy. I'm going to now make it darker over here. So what I've done is I've got a darker green. Now this is a little bit too bright of a green, but as color comes forward, it does get more chromatic. So, and why I'm not really crazy about going over and over the fence is we're going to add something to that later as well. So then I'm going to blend that in, and I'm going to actually take this same brush because I want a little of that sky color in here, and I'm just going to lightly brush in, and we've created the illusion of depth. Light in the back, a little bit more unsaturated, and a little more saturated when we come forward. Now, let's look on the other side here. We've got these beautiful trees, and last week I explained that you want to go from a very light value to a dark value. After I looked at this for a while, I said, you know, I would really like to, I probably should have made this more of a mid-tone between the back and the front. And there's a reason for that. You can't show light without dark. So I'm going to use a technique here with this very beat up acid brush. And save your beat up brushes because they will give you effect. And in a couple of weeks, we're going to do a little experiment where we're going to do some mark making. I'm going to teach you how to use your palette knife and your brush and how to make different marks with different types of brushes, etc. So what I want to do is I want to put a dark here because I want the tree to have some form, but I have to think form. So I'm going to use straight, this is pretty much straight sap green, and it's creating the illusion as we go back just by tapping it with this beat up old brush of leaves. And think form. Here we have a bush. I'm just lightly touching it. And one of the things is it's so easy to overwork a piece of art. But as you can see, it's coming to life. Now, I want a little more dark in here because this is deeper into the forest here. So I'm going to touch it a little bit more there. Now, we've got the dark. Now, as you will see, how we show the light is to take the dark and just touch it lightly here and there. Think of form and create your bushes and your trees. So as things grow and as things create, they get better and bigger and nicer. So I see a little shape in here I want to add to. So add a little lightness to there. Now, one of the other things is down in here, that's all shadow. That's dark in the woods. Now what I'm going to do is take a little of my dark color that I used when I mixed the burnt umber and the ultramarine blue, and I'm going to mix that with a little of the green, and I'm going to come down in here and I'm going to make, with this same brush, I'm going to make some very dark, because as things come forward they get darker. These are the little hideouts in the woods, behind the branches, behind the trees. And I see these little trunks that I want to keep effective, I want to keep alive in there. So here we go. Now, like I said, we want to take highlights and put it on this trees, but you can't see highlights unless you have dark. So with the dark, and we're going to do the same thing over here, with the dark, I'm going to mix up a little bit more of the cadmium yellow deep with my green, because I want a little bit more brighter green in the front than what's in the middle. And there we go, looking good. Little tip, always mix your paint with a palette knife. You want to know you've got the color that you're going to work with before you apply it. And I wear farmer's jeans when I'm painting, and I always keep this rag on my leg, both to wipe my palette knife on and to clean my brushes. So, here we are. Now what I'm going to do is, we've already used the beat up acid brush. I'm going to take this 2-inch brush, and I want to create some effects over here as well. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to take in just the corner of this brush, and I'm going to put some of that yellow into it, yellow-green. And there we go. Now, and the thing is, don't overwork it, you lose your darks. All right, now I'm going to take the little brush. Notice we're getting some really nice atmospheric perspective here. I still would rather have a medium color here, a more subdued green, because this is too close to this. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to take a little bit of dark, and I'm going to neutralize a mid-green. Notice how just the small addition of this green has now created more depth with the faded out in the back, the faded out green right here. Different values. All right, so now I want to take this bush, and I want to even increase a few of the highlights in here. Now I've got two values. I got dark, I got my mid value, and now I want to touch it with a little bit lighter value. So I'm going to take a little lighter value and just touch the tips, just to give it a little more dimension. That's all it takes. And think form, think bushes, think what you like to see. I see this little space in here. A lot of paintings, when you're painting from your memory or you're painting from your mind, are created because you see things in them. So here we go with the branch. There's a tree right there. I see a few more in there. Maybe another one right there. Maybe another one right here. So there you go. Maybe an old branch sitting right there. Remember, we have light coming in, so we want to take one side of that branch and make it look like the light's hitting it. All right. So now we've done the sky. We've created atmospheric perspective here. I'm thinking about what else we can do. We've got the trees going off into the distance, more detail in the front. Now, same here. We did a pretty nice job here with our cluster of grass and plants. But if we think about it, this isn't balanced. This is, everything's drawn to that side. Your average person in the United States will look at a painting and they view it from left to right. In another country, it might be from right to left. But that's that's how we're used to seeing things. So what I'm going to do is I need to make this more dark. So I'm going to take some of that sap green and some of my black mix, and I'm going to create the dark so that we can show light. Okay, same thing as the other side. Now you see how that's kind of bringing it together? Maybe I want a little more dark over here too, because we're in the woods here. It's all a matter of playing, changing, seeing what works for you. So, with that said, now I'm going to take some of that light color, and it's actually some of the color of the sky, and I'm going to create the illusion of a big bush over here. Voila. Maybe put a little bit of that over here. Grass on the side of the road. All right. So now we've got the trees, and of course we could play with this. I'm trying to do this kind of quick to give you the idea. The path gets lighter as it goes back. There's more chromatic value in the foreground. There's more chromatic value here. It's darker in the front, it's lighter in the back. We could put a few things into the field. I'm going to pull out a smaller brush now, which I don't always do. All right. I'm going to take this smaller brush, and I'm going to make, let's make some piles of hay as they're coming forward. So hay is nice because we'll use that same sky color, and we don't have to worry. Remember, as they go back, they get lighter and less. So what we're doing is we're creating our space, and we're making little piles of wheat or hay. Now notice as they get smaller as they go back. Now, you know, we have the sun coming in, so one side of this has to be dark. But as we go back, we want to lose the saturation. So what I've done is, and there's no focus back here. You can't see anything. It's got to be out of focus. And as we come forward, things get darker. Notice I'm overlapping too. Overlapping is very good